Alright, welcome back. I reviewed some of the previous footage I did for the FZ-10, and my head is in the way in a lot of shots. So on this mod for an FZ-1 with the BT9101 encoder, I'm going to take a lot of the shots over with my scope, so my head won't be in the way. So it's going to be kind of the same as before, so it's going to be a complete start to finish install on this. I've been told this is a 101 encoder, so let's pop it open and find out. All the installs between the two are fairly similar, so if my head's in the way on this shot, you should be able to see it on the other console, or this console. So I apologize for that. Quick tear down. These screws pop out. And there goes one. Found it. Alright, let's go take all this stuff off. This will be my little screw container for now. Alright, need my screwdriver, which I was literally just using a second ago. Not this big one. Here it is. Alright. Heat shield just pops off. Alright. Let's go ahead and pull these back connectors off. And there's 4 screws that hold the CD drive in. The machine looks pretty clean inside. So I'll drive over here. Go ahead and pull these off. Just press the power button on that just to discharge if there was any power in the caps. I haven't actually plugged this unit in. I'm told it's working. I should have actually tested it. There's a lot of consoles people will send you untested and they actually don't work out of the gate, which is annoying. But I believe this was a guy's personal console, so I don't question it not working. That plastic thing just pops out, and then we've got all of these screws that hold this shield in. So we're just gonna go around the world here. I'm not worried about grabbing all the screws right now. If they come out with the screwdriver, I'll take them, but once I get the shield off, I will grab them all. I think that's it. Oh, missed one back here. These screws like to hold and grab. So there we go. And we're free. Just getting all the screws in my hand. Got a nice little stack of parts over here. This little controller connector just pops right out. This just comes out. Let's grab some tweezers. This just comes out. I'm probably missing some screws, but they're probably hiding, but I will find them. So we do need to pull the whole console out, or the whole motherboard out. Okay, got all the screws. And it does have the 101 encoder. Alright, so first thing we need to pull this guy out. I'll try and not block the camera this time. Zoom in. You know, I think now is maybe a good time. I'm going to switch to my microscope mount, so I will be back. Alright, we're back here. Here's a shot of, hopefully this camera doesn't shake too much. Here's the RF mount we're going to do. And we are going to, let's see if I can zoom out at all. We're going to try and desolder all these. So first we're going to put a little solder on everything. It's going to help the reflow process, or the flow process of the pins coming loose. There's one more over here. And just putting fresh solder on just helps just any connections and makes it the heat flow to the other solder. Otherwise sometimes you'll get stuff that just won't flow and it'll be dry, and so I still got a lot of solder in that hole. I'm going to try and see if we can get it all out. Still see a little bit in there. Alright, so we want these pins to all be loose. Okay, that one's tight. They're all pretty tight. That one's loose. I can see kind of where this one's barely touching. Let's see if we can't just heat it up and wiggle it. Nope, not able to do that one. Let's put a little more flux on. Let's see if we can't suck the rest of this solder out. It's still too tight, so let's try and just heat her up. Alright, there we got that one. This one definitely still has too much solder in it. I didn't pay attention. My iron was pretty hot. Doesn't need to be that hot. Let's see if we can't. I'm going to wiggle this as I'm using this. Yep. See how all those pins are free now. And then the next step is, so I normally cut off the top this pin on the other side using side cutters. Sorry, I noticed the lens I was using had a ton of fingerprint marks on it. So I normally take cutters and snip it like this underneath. And I'm going to try and do that off camera because no way I can do that without seeing it. But what that allows you to do is it just allows taking this off to be a lot easier. Or this one is really close to the board, so I might have got it. I don't know. We're gonna find out. So normally what I'll do is I'm gonna get my iron real hot again. I'm gonna heat this. Actually, I don't need solder. I'm just gonna heat this up right here. See if we can see this. I'm gonna heat this up. here. I'm going to try and pop it down on the side. I'm clearly not able to do that. I'm going to get a little bit of a wedge here. Let's see what happens here. Alright, there we go. So there's actually nothing critical on the bottom of this. It's a ground on both sides. Alright, there we go. Just needed a little bit of extra leaven. Alright, one side's off. Alright, and here's our RF mount taken out. You can see where I cut that pad right there. Alright, so now let's go ahead and pull this connector out. Pliers. We're going to go ahead and pull all the solder out of these holes. Alright. Let's get this one next. Still quite a bit of solder in there, so let's see if we can't. Some more heat? Nope, still got a lot of solder, so I may need to attack that from the top side. That one looks pretty good. So I'm going to flip her over. And so to mount the RGB mount, all that solder needs to be gone. So, just put a little flux up here. End of this. Put my iron in there. Alright, good as new. Right, now I'm going to do a little cleanup on the other side. See that my iron was really hot, so I have a lot of flex residue that I want to scrape off. I'm just using 99% isotope alcohol. Alright, it's pretty good. So the next step is we need to put the pins in. Let me get a kit for this. Alright, got 2 pins. So these 2 pins right here need to go into these 2 holes. It's actually kind of difficult to do on camera. This camera mount's so close. But what needs to happen is these pins need to sit like that. And they need to sit closest to the edge of the PCB. Like that. So we're going to go ahead and probably haven't perfected a way to do this yet. But I'm going to hold the bottom of this pin right here. Oh, sorry guys. Sorry for the shakes. I got solder everywhere. So I'm going to put some solder on my iron if I can get it to cooperate. It's not cooperating, so hold on. Alright, there we go. So I'm going to try and hold the pin perfectly straight down, no angle, and I'm just going to tack it in place. And since you're holding the pin and since it's copper, don't burn yourself, because that would be easy to do. And I felt a little bit of heat there, but I let go before there was enough transfer or anything. So now we're going to do this other pin. Let's see if we can get on camera. Here's the other pin. Try and hold it straight down. Didn't flux it. Alright, so it's at least tacked in. Now over here, you just want to make sure that they're straight up and down. You can see how this one pin right here is kicked over this way. So I am going to retouch that one up. And it was this pin. Alright. Alright, so yeah, so now we're both straight up and down. Both pretty good. So what I'm going to do again on the bottom side here is I'm going to try and more permanently solder these in. My goal is to not get the pin loose. So I'm going to kind of put some stuff around the pads. Alright, let's do this one. You can see I'm kind of doing one side at a time. Alright, we are done there. We can put the board back in, but I think on this one, let's do the RGB stack right now. One soldered in place. So here we've got the one board. This goes in like that. So let's go ahead and solder this in. Tip looks pretty gross right now. Definitely need to clean it. So I think I'm going to do that. My iron's pretty warm right now, so it's burning a lot of flux up. I probably should turn it down. And the next piece we're going to use, but first let's go ahead and clean that up. Alright, so we're clean here. And we're going to take this board, which is another thick board, and it's going to sit like that. So find kind of a way to hold it in both of your hands. And then I'm going to put just a hair of flux on the edge here. Alright, we're tacked in. I'm going to tack this side, and we're just tacking. We're not trying to fill it with a ton of solder. We're just trying to make it hold. Alright. We're going to take this board, and this one goes like this on the bottom. And it's a little bit thinner than the others. So we're going to do the same thing. Just going to line them up. They don't have to be dead exact, but get them best you can, because why not? I need a little flux, and that was really warm on my finger. My thumb definitely felt that. Okay, I need to move my thumb. Just a lot of Radiant heat right there coming off that. Alright, they were tacked in on there. Need flux. Sometimes I hope I don't need flux, and every time I don't put it on, I do. I need some more. Some more solder. Alright, there we go. So the main stack is together. Alright, now we're going to, before you solder this in place, I recommend, we're going to be touching the outside of these pads, and you can see there was no solder on them ever. So they actually sometimes don't solder very well, so I'm just going to scrape it with my iron, and it'll get any surface layer off, and allow that to solder easier. And we're going to drop this stack on. And in the stack, you're going to want to line up with the edge of the PCB. So you can see how there I'm doing my hand there. And that's pretty much the placement of it. So we're going to put a lot of flux on the edge here. I'm just going to put a lot of solder on my tip. Just going to line it between these two. Try and get it. Okay. Well, we've got one in. I can feed solder in easier. Kind of just keep feeding solder in, let it flow down. Just kind of trying to let it heat up here. Hasn't really fallen yet, so I'm trying to squeeze in here. I can't squeeze in there, so let's try this side. So put some more solder in. Alright, there we go. So we've got a solid connection there. Let's do the same thing over here. Put a little more. And the point of these pins are, there's a lot of lateral force when you insert the DIN in like this. So without the pins, it's possible like people push too hard or whatnot, and it literally would just rip the pads off the top. So the pins make it a lot more structurally sound. So I'm going to go ahead and clean some of this residue off. And I'm not going to put the mini DIN in yet because I want to align it perfectly with the hole. So let's take the console back. I'm going to swing you out of the way for a second. Drop the board in. Let me swing you back over. Raise it up. Alright, so you can see that this is the stack now, which is pretty centered. So now to the RGB mount. See if I can get a good spot for this that I can solder in. You can see. I think that'll work. So I'm going to set this in here. And then so what I like to do is I like to look over at the hole itself and then put my finger in. And that holds it in place. And that has my alignment. So now I'm going to put a little bit solder on this track right here. I'm not actually trying to touch the mini din yet. I'm just prepping this with solder and make sure that I like my mini din's position. I'll hold it with my fingers. And now I'm going to rub up against the mini din and just kind of scrape it. And my alignment is a little off, so I'm going to try and scoot it back if I can. I'm going to have to let some heat in this. It's getting too hot for me to touch. Let's see here. Alright. Now I've made things a lot worse. Alright. Let that cool down for a second. This time I need to make sure that I get it centered before I must have barely moved it a little bit. That's why we just tack it in first. That way it's not a big deal to move. Alright, so there it is centered. So I need some more solder here. Yep, need some more solder. Making contact. Make sure we're still centered. Alright, there it's tacked in. Alright, so now we've got a little bit of a gap on this side, which is okay. Now since this is tacked in, we don't got to worry about don't have to worry about alignment issues. So I'm going to scrape over here. I usually use a little bit bigger of a tip for this, but we'll make this tip work. We're just using a lot of solder, so this real thin stuff disappears fast. You really gotta flow it in. Over a previous point. And go ahead and tie the mini din in into this pin right here. That will really up its strength. Alright, let's see here. Almost done. Alright. Now this mini din is going to be super hot. We're going to put some cold isopropyl alcohol on it. It's not really cold, but you know, when gas expands, it, you know, does its thing. Alright, where's my brush at? So try and clean any debris off. Alright, our mini din is pretty much in. Let's go ahead and put this in. Alright, so we got our RGB mount in, so now we need to do a little board prep. So the first thing on the BT9101 encoders, we need to cut the horizontal and vertical sync from the video DAC to the, I guess it's more than a DAC, but from the video DAC to the CPU here, the Clio. So I'm gonna focus in on these little two lines right here, which I'll try and focus in on and see. That's pretty good. So we need to do two trace cuts here. One right here. Cut this groove out. And then one on the line right next to it. When I do little trace cuts, I actually kind of cut a V, so I know that the trace is totally gone. Alright, and the next steps are we need to mount the flex cable. So that's going to sit actually right in our same area. Right here. So we're going to take a little bit of flux, drop it on this. Put my iron at 300 degrees. I'm just going to touch it with just a hair of solder. And really I'm not actually trying to add solder, I'm trying just to get my tip wet so it, or tip has solder on it so it flows to the solder on the mod. I'm just going to go around and just kind of touch each pin. And you can see I'm not actually adding solder, I'm actually pulling solder up from the board. I'm going to make sure that this is pushed down over here. Just going to go over each one. You can see I'm not spending too much time on each pin. They're not perfect yet, but we'll get them there. Alright, so now I'm going to just add a little bit more flux. Now let's kind of go over each pin a little bit better. This time I'm actually touching the pins of the Clio here, and not really touching the flex. And then after I pull solder up from that, I just wipe down. Looks like I need a little solder right there because I can actually see under the microscope what's going on. So I just put just a tiny little bit of solder on my tip. You can see I'm forming some bridges right now. I'm just going to try and pull that away to some other pins. We've got one little bridge left. And most of these pins are looking pretty good. Okay, let's rotate it around. We're going to move that cap out of the way, and then we're going to do this little arm. Put a little, just a tiny bit of solder on my iron. And we're going to put my flex on. Use a pair of tweezers, push the flex down. These are the HV sync points, horizontal and vertical sync. So you could kind of say that these are the most important pins of the mod. If these are shorted or whatnot, you won't get synced properly. And I just totally bridged the crap out of them. So give me a second here to try and get this cleaned up. Okay. So we got a bunch of bridges. Hopefully we can't get the flex to unbridge. There it goes. Alright, I don't know if I'll be able to get that bridge out of the chip. I'm going to use some braid. I'm just going to barely touch it. It looks like I actually have a little bent pin. I must have bent that doing something. So let's try and bend that back. So bent pins are never fun, but it can happen. Okay. Okay, there we go. That all looks okay. Let's go ahead and zoom back out a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little spritzer of isopropyl alcohol. Gonna kind of barely rush the flex. Make sure the top of the chip is cleaned off well, because that's how we're going to mount the 3DO board. Let's wrap some tweezers. Go ahead and pull this bottom tape up. And then from here, before you stick it on, we're going to insert it in. And now we're going to try and make sure it's straight with the cable. I'm just going to kind of give it some light pressure. And now we are installed on that. So next steps are we need to run a cable from the 3DO board or run the horizontal sync from the BT9101 to the RGB mod. So I'm going to pre-tin these pads. Now let's get some wire. Alright, some yellow wire here. Alright, sorry about that. We need to run a cable from the bottoms of these two resistors, R147 and R146 and R147. And we need to run them to these pads right here. So R147 is the vertical point. So I'm going to pre-tin these pads over here. I'm going to try and zoom in for you. Go ahead and stab a wire in there. Okay, so this was the vertical point. Sorry if I have my finger in the way. I like to make sure my cables look good when I run them, so I'll spend a little extra time here and we'll route them. That's okay. Just like that. Pull it back up. I'm going to wire strip it. Okay. The next wire is for the horizontal sink. We're going to do the same thing. Just the bottom of a 146. I'll just throw a little dab of flux on there. Go up and loop around. This wire lay down. Oh, no trouble. There we go. Strip this wire. I'm going to make sure when I strip a wire like this that I really hold on to the wire so you do not put any pressure on that resistor pad, because that will easily come off. So be very careful. I'm just going to prep my wires here, make them look a little nicer. Okay. Right, there we go. Now that's honestly all that needs to be done for the RGB mod. So now we need to run red, green, blue lines. So I'm going to pre-tin these pads. Ground's not necessary to tin. This jumper right here needs to be jumped because this is the BT101. All other boards don't need that jump at all. That jumper's right here. Sorry, that jumper's right here that I just soldered. And now we also need to just kind of zoom out a little bit. I'm also going to tin these pads over here. Like I said, you don't need to hook up ground because the DIN mount supplies ground already. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to hook up 5 volts. This is going into a 9-pin mini DIN, and it needs 5 volts for the HD retrovision cables. So you can grab 5 volts from this hole right there. That's honestly where I recommend you get 5 volts from. You don't have to. You could probe around on the board and find a better reference spot, but it's totally up to you. Oh, I forgot I didn't solder the DIN mount on. I guess we missed that step. So let's do that real quick. Where my iron is in a bad spot. I don't want to melt the plastic on the side of this. Just kind of throwing some solder in here. Iron's still at 300, so it's not flowing extremely well on these ground planes, but it's okay. It's working. Now we're going to hook up audio. Actually, before we get too far, I need to pull the motherboard out. And we need to solder that plus 5 volt wire on the bottom. Might be able to solder on the top, but I like the bottom better. So we're going to do that. Okay. So put this back over. Let's put the board back in. Now let's run left and right audio. I'm going to wire it to these 2 filters. So this is going to be the output of the left right here, and then the right. Just going to touch it with some solder so it flows. It's kind of standard stuff we've been doing the whole time. I'm going to use some 28 gauge stranded wire. This is Teflon coated, so it's not solid. So it is still Teflon coated, but it is not solid core. It's 28 stranded. It is made by Arrow. Part number is 2842/19. So it's got 19 strands in it. And I am just prepping this wire right now. Okay. I'm going to run it underneath this. Flip it around. Let's see if you can see this, just barely. Let's get that wire out of the way. Take this wire. We're going to. We're restricted here by this camera and microscope and this power cable. But I think I found a way in. Alright. Those are all good. I'm going to bend those back up. Position this. So, I'm going to cut them. Okay, I don't think I can. I'm not going to guess which one's which, so I'm going to pull my meter out. Alright, so let's do audio right, which is this guy. Okay, so it's the one on the right. Here. Okay, this is audio left. Go ahead and push those down. Alright, audio is done. Now we need to do the same thing for our horizontal input wire, or not horizontal, our 240p switch, red, green, blue lines, and sync. So we're going to loop around like so. I'm just kind of getting my layout of what I think how these will lay. So that's pretty good length. Now I'm just building a bunch of 5 wires for the same 28 gauge stranded. Working fast, I know you can't see me. Alright, a little wire pack ready now. So let's go ahead and solder these on. All the way out. I'm going to route these over here. Okay, let's find the I got my meter on the FZ-1 input, or HCI. I'm not finding it. Is my meter working? Yes. Okay, it's that one. This must not have been making good contact on that pad. I'm going to pull this wire out of that. And let's see how we want to route this. I'll say it like that. I also could loop this up a little bit more. How does that look? I'm just finding the best way to route this right now, or what looks nice. So I'm going to cut all these to length one at a time and solder them in. This does take some time. You can use ribbon cable if you desire. I just like the way this looks. It's just kind of my method. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. Well, there's definitely a wrong way to do it, but it's hard to do. So let's see, next wire is we're going to do sync. So I'm going to tap my sync point on my board. I'm going to look for this. Alright, that was easy. Let's get her over here. Goes pretty fast once you get it going. Alright, let's do blue. And remember, some meters will beep at like less than 200 ohm. So my meter does. However, I got lucky and got the right one, but these have 75 ohm resistors to ground, so you'll get 150 ohm resistance between the two colors. So your meter might beep. So make sure if you do it this way, make sure that it is a 0 ohm short. Blue's done. We're going to do green. That's the wrong one. Okay. Nose is kind of runny. Sorry for that. And we've got one more wire to do, which is red. Okay, alright, I'm pretty much done, so I'm going to pull you off the scope and put you back up top. So hold on 1 second. Alright, you're back up top now. So I'm going to just do a little cleanup in here. We've got some straight wires. I'm just going to use a little bit of cleaning on this where the flux at. Too crazy. Soak it up. Alright, so the mod itself is pretty much done. So I would recommend you test it at this point. For the FZ-1 consoles, you've got to have the disk drive plugged in for it to show video. So give me a second here and I'll get everything set up. Alright, we are back. So I got my HD Retrovision cables plugged into an OSSC. Let's see what happens. I see 260p on the OSSC, and I've got video. Great. Let's switch to 480i and confirm that works, and it does. Alright, we look to be good. So we pull this stuff back off and we'll get back to where we were. Alright, so now since everything's pretty much good to go, we just need to, these wires, move these out of the way. We need to put the heat shields back on. So to do that, you need to cut them to get around this. Now it's not necessarily critical that you have them, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. But I just cut this heat shield off right here, snipped this side off. So I'm going to place that in right here. And you kind of can drop it in and slide it underneath. Like so. Let's get a screw. We'll just tighten it down and get these wires out of the way. And then also while we're here, we need to heat shrink these tubes. So I've got my hot air station right here that I can just keep on the lowest setting. And we are done with that. Alright, so the next heat shield has a few things that can be cut right here. So I'm just going to use scissors for those. That'll be the easiest. locate my scissors, which are right here. So I'm just going to cut underneath. Okay. Before we do that, I need to plug in our controller port. It goes like so. Oops. Let's drop this in. Make sure we don't smash any wires here. Okay. And this is going to sit like so. And let me grab a bunch of screws here. We can start putting screws in. Some more screws. We're definitely not afraid to put a lot of screws in this console. Let's get this one in the middle. Grab some more screws. Let's see. Is there one right here? Yep. Got a little too excited with that. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Shoot. I don't know if there was a screw in that. Alright, this snaps back in. Got our open close button drops in. Screws here. There's a screw over here. Okay. Let's drop our drive in place. Put our cables in. Okay, well, we got 4 screws to hold the drive in. Alright, then the top shield here will need to be cut as well. When it comes on, it's going to hit right here. So we just need to cut those tabs off. And do the same scissor method. You're good to snap back on. And that is almost the end. We gotta put the top on. For some reason I'm only seeing 3 screws here. So there's gotta be a 4th hiding out somewhere. Okay, nothing in there. Alright, well, I'm going to get this top back together, but that is the installation. Just make sure you follow the written instructions. If there's any updates or any changes, it'll be reflected in the written instructions. I will not update the video. So, always refer to those. And thanks for watching.